Good morning, afternoon, and evening, everybody. My name is miahtheking, and you just can't trust atoms. They make up everything. Now then, today we're taking a look at a game just released early this morning on Steam called Landnama. At least I think that's how you pronounce it. Developed and published by Sunderland, released not in early access, and selling for $14 American. So, what is this game? Well, it's kind of like a board game, actually. Hell, it might actually be a video game based on a board game, or maybe the other way around, I don't know, but that's kind of how it's played. As for story, well, it's kind of just settling Iceland. I think it was Iceland. That's pretty much it. No characters, no story at all here except, settle. Deal with events and natural problems and try to survive while following the gameplay components and mechanics. A strategy about how to do this in the most efficient and quick way possible. I mean, develop a strategy on how to do this in the most efficient and quick way possible. That's pretty much it. So, as always, let's go into the good and the bad, but up first is the good. So, the first positive that I have here is the look and feel of the game. I know it doesn't have a lot to show for it, and you're kind of just staring at a bland art thing here, whatever you want to call it. And, I get that it's not the greatest graphics ever, but if you're looking at it like it's an animated board game, and if you think of the type of style they've got here, the art actually works for it here. It's not great, but, it looks good for what you're doing and for, how simple the game is and for how little time you're going to be spending playing it. So, it's not the worst. I mean, don't get me wrong. They're not the best graphics ever, okay? We can tell by looking. But it doesn't look bad either, considering what it is. And that's where I'm making my judgment. Based on where it is and what kind of game it is, the graphics don't look too bad. They're kind of generic and basic, but it works. Does that make any sense? But it basically feels good, which leads me into my next positive, which is the user interface and the stability. So the user interface and the stability are both really well done here. My game didn't crash, bug out, freeze, or anything. And as I was playing it, it was all reactive, accurate, made sense, and smooth. So it felt good to play, and I never worried about it breaking on me or it making a mistake or whatever. As for the user interface, it's easy to navigate and understand. It has tooltip bubbles at appropriate places to keep the player informed, which made the game easier to play and understand and overall more enjoyable, at least in my opinion. Then you've got the tutorial, my next point. The game probably didn't even need one because it's so frickin' simple. Just make sure you have enough hearts at the end of each year, and each building you want to build on each tile tells you what it does, so, just read and you'll know what you're doing. But even so, the game still decided to give me a quick and easy to understand tutorial, which is very much appreciated, and I always want to make a special point of that in my videos. The next thing I want to talk about is the gameplay. So as I stated earlier, you're going to have to colonize Iceland, and it's really, really hard to do. It has this challenging gameplay loop in which it works like this. You have the tiles, right? And you need to utilize them in some way, shape, or form. You can build explorers who can go and explore and reveal what the tiles have on them, and then you can build farms or fishermen, etc. And to do these things, you have these personal little tokens that you can use. The explorers who search and uncover the tiles, and the builders who will actually build the things you need. Now you got a set limit and you need to use them effectively. Sometimes you can unlock a new one, but those are kind of rare. Each year you will lose hearts, which you can see at the top of my screen, so you need to prepare for the winter by making sure you're earning enough hearts from the buildings that you've built so that you don't die in winter. And this is with all those buildings that you've been constructing on the tiles that you've found. The hearts that are expected of you will grow as you grow, and so will the amount that you could produce each year. So you're going to need to expand and prepare accordingly and quickly. You need to be smart and lucky. Lucky so that when you explore a tile, it actually gives you something worth your time and hearts needed to explore it. And you need to be smart because you need to plan out how you're going to utilize your hearts and also have enough at the end of each year. At first, while playing this, I thought it was kind of an easy setup, but the more I played, the harder I realized it really was, because it progresses fairly quickly. Now, in the beginning, the game lets you pick a starting area based on difficulty and a starting clan, which can either have no benefits or special benefits that can help you. There's also a difficulty setting that you can set the game on to make it easier or harder. I picked all the easiest choices for this review, and I still lost, except for the difficulty. I chose normal because I was thinking, hey, it couldn't be that bad. And in the beginning, you basically get 3 clans, 3 chances to succeed, and I failed all 3 times. In other words, this game is hard, like really, really hard. Not hard to understand, just really hard to win. And the weird thing is it's not really in a bad way, but in a good way. Like, I didn't feel discouraged after losing. I felt encouraged to keep trying, motivated. I wanted to win. I don't know how they did that, but they did it. And yeah, that's pretty much all there is to the gameplay. I mean, what you're watching here is just all there is to the gameplay. Sometimes there will be a pop-up event where you can make choices, and these will most of the time have negative effects of some kind, which is a pain in the ass. Oh, and sometimes you can discover something new, like in one playthrough I unlocked an extra explorer token, like I mentioned earlier, so I had 3. But otherwise, it's pretty much what you're watching right now, rinse and repeat. Now then, on to the negatives. But before that, would you guys and girls out there please consider supporting my channel? The best way to do that is to spread the word and share the videos, but a subscription and a clicking on that bell helps a lot too. Also, have you heard of my same-day reviews? You make a request for a game that you're really interested in and that you'd like me to take a look at, and I'll buy it, play it, review it, and post a video of it that same day. Unless I already put out a video that day. So maybe give it a try. Alright then, so now on to the negatives. Up first is the music and the sounds. I mean, the game's music is kinda... well, it's kind of bad. I mean, I hate to say it because at first I thought it actually sounded legit authentic, but the longer I listened to it, the more I realized it was just the same note over and over and over again. And then when it did change, it just hurt my ears. For the rest of the time in the game, it just kind of disappeared and was very quickly forgotten. As for sound effects, I mean, they're kind of there and they're kind of not there, so it's hard to judge them, but they weren't relevant enough for me to talk about how good they were, that's for sure. And there's no voice acting either, so honestly, sound design overall was just below average. Next up is the price tag. This is a $5 game. Come on, this is definitely not worth more than 10 in my own personal opinion, because it barely has anything. It barely has any writing, barely has a UI, barely has any music, since it's pretty much just the same track over and over again. Barely has any commands. It has almost nothing to offer other than the interesting map and gameplay mechanics, which they then just use on repeat. So this game just should not be charging as much as it is. The last negative I have is that the game is unfair. Now remember how I stated that it's hard and challenging but in a good way? Well, it is, but it also has these very unfair moments in the gameplay. The rate at which things increase and change is a bit daunting and can be, unless you actually played this game for a couple hours and you already know what you're doing, it's going to be really hard. And the game will randomly throw events at you at the worst possible moments that'll just end your game instantly. Plus the RNG mechanic here is so against you, it's not even fair. And some of the math just isn't adding up either. Like, they want you to upgrade this so you can store more, all this in a time before it takes it all away. And then you realize there just isn't enough hearts to do this. It's like, that might have been a bit confusing. Basically, what it's saying is, it wants you to upgrade your buildings so that you can earn more hearts or so that you can store more hearts. But in doing so, you will not gain enough hearts in time to be able to upgrade your settlement and get it to where you can hold more without running out of hearts and then dying. And it doesn't give you second chances. So once you make a mistake, it's game over. There's also no way to quit or restart, which is also incredibly frustrating, because if you make a mistake and you know you messed up, well, too bad. Play out the rest of it till you lose and suffer. So in some places, the math just doesn't add up. But that's not all. Everything in the gameplay is unfair, which can make it more of a challenge than it already is, which in my opinion was unnecessary. But yeah, so that's all I got for the good and the bad. My final thoughts? Well, I wish I could have shown you more of the gameplay, but I kinda did. I mean, everything you've been watching is pretty much all there is to it. It can be a little boring, and once you play it for a couple hours and you've experienced it and you've won a couple matches, it gets pretty boring and repetitive, so it doesn't really have any replayability. As for the length of time, I mean, you could probably finish this game in a day once you learned how to play it, so it doesn't really work well there either. I mean, you use math to build things as best and as quickly as you can think of at the time, like, that gives me 2 hearts, and that gives me 1 heart, that plus 1 for every nearby forest, etc., etc. And you try to live long enough to upgrade your main settlement to its final level. Once you've done that, you have officially colonized the area, and you get to move on to the next area, which unlocks newer clans, bonuses, etc. I mean, I did eventually figure it out and start beating the game, but only when I put the difficulty on easy, and even then it still wasn't easy, so, you know, to each their own. Honestly, I'm not really seeing a big problem with this game other than the fact that it can be really unfair and that price tag is ridiculous. So I guess, I mean, if you're looking for a simple yet challenging strategy game that would be great for one day, then yeah, I guess you could buy this. I personally am not a big fan of games like this, but I can see the appeal. Would I recommend this game? I guess, again, if this is your kind of thing. It's not going to be anything else, but I would still recommend you get it at a discount. At least I would get this game if you're into unfair challenges that are beatable. Otherwise, just pass. It's not a Civilizations kind of game or a war strategy kind of game. It's basically just a puzzle game with the skin of a strategy game. And if that's not really what you're looking for, then this game just isn't for you. Alright, everybody? Alright, so that's all the time I got for this video. Thanks so much for watching. If you have any questions or concerns, please let me know in the comments down below. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you all again on my next adventure. So until then, I bid you all farewell.